got a new computer.
No. This is a computer from like 2010. It can't run Excel or Word.
Even better.
Yeah, it barely runs the internet. Hey, welcome to the 2-month review, the weekly podcast from Open Letter and 3%, in which we take one book, break it down bit by bit, talk about it, make jokes, analyze it, have a good time. And this season we are reading Antoine Volodine's Radiant Terminus. And I am Chad Post from Open Letter Books, joined as always by Brian Wood.
Hi, Chad. It's great to be back.
Nice to have you back since you weren't here last week. And our special guest, returning guest, is Rachel Cordasco from the Speculative Fiction and Translation, is the main thing I think people listening will know you from. How are things going?
They're good. I'm barely able to keep track of all the SF in translation, actually, which might be surprising, but there really is a lot out there. So
I know. I use your spreadsheet to update the translation database because there's a lot of ones that you hone in on that I don't see there. They don't send us, and they're not in catalogs that I normally come across. Like a lot of the Japanese light novels is incredibly helpful, but it seems like there's so much more stuff than one would imagine.
There is, and I can't even like I've actually given up on the Japanese light novels and I've just said, you know what, there's so many people who actually devote everything to just like the light novels, the manga, the the wuxia, I was just like, y'all do that. I'm gonna do this other, because otherwise it would be a complete avalanche.
I know. I've luckily got a few of them tagged, so I can go to the Ingram iPage and click on view the publisher and see the new books, so I can add them on. But there's sometimes it's like I don't even know if these are novels or graphic novels or what's going on.
It's hard to know.
It's really hard to tell sometimes. But it's good that you're doing that. What's your have you noticed any particular trends recently?
There's a lot of collections by women of like surrealist stories. So for instance, the new Samantha Schweblin Mouthful of Birds. There's another one by an Indonesian woman that came out last year. And there are a few others. It's just a lot of like surreal, kind of strange, like magical realism kind of stuff coming out.
Okay.
Whatever. That's fine.
I don't know that it really fits, but I think you might like Flowers of Mold, the Ha Song Nan book that we're bringing out in April.
Shameless plug.
Yeah, shameless plug, straight up plug. Boom. I don't know if we sent you a copy of the Galley, but we'll have finished copies in very soon, and we'll send you. But they it's not necessarily speculative fiction, but it's weird and like Brian Blurb, you know what it's about. You can.
It's extra terrifying because it's distinctly domestic, and then it's horrific within that really comfortable domestic realm. So there's this distrust of your neighbors and just reality, like a very familiar reality, like just crumbling around you, told in a very realistic, straightforward way. It's really amazing.
Yeah, she's super talented. And it's incredible. We got a lot of great blurbs for it from
there's
Brian,
shades
Brian
of Schweblin, Evanson. There's some
and Susan Choi blurbed it too.
Yeah, vibe to it. It's really cool stuff.
Yeah, I think you'll really like that.
I think it'd be really cool. Be like, I'm reading South Korean literature these days, written by women. So
South Korean women are the hot thing.
Oh, really? What websites are you going to?
I mean, not that there are categories for that I'm aware of, but if I were to guess.
So you're seeing a lot of surrealistic women's or fiction written by women. Are you seeing, as far as the translated literature, is there a volume that's coming out of certain areas?
I mean, a lot of, some from Spanish, but from different, so one from Argentina, Spain, Indonesia. It seems to be all over the place. But then also I just started Dark Constellations. I don't know how to pronounce it. Her name, Paula something.
Ola. I know how to do it, but I can't do it right now.
Something.
Savage
You know who we're talking
Savage
about.
Theories lady.
Yeah.
Savage Theories.
Yeah.
Also, that's not her name.
Oh.
To make this extra fun, that's her name backwards.
Of course it is.
Remember, Andre Sneeman told us that when we were at dinner, that that's not her real last name. It's spelled backwards. So it's Ola Archik or whatever, but if you did it backwards, it might because it would end with the OLO. That would make more sense as like a Spanish last name.
Yeah.
When the X's start getting there, I get freaked out.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I saw the X and was like, no, I don't know what to do with that.
I'm gonna fail.
Especially if it's Spanish or Portuguese, because Portuguese has that other weird X sound.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. It's so weird. Like I'm on page, I don't know, 20, and I'm waiting to start understanding what's happening.
She goes dark and she goes hardcore. I want to meet her in person so bad.
She was supposed to come to an event here, but it didn't work out.
I think she's over. Is she at Stanford doing like a fellowship over in Stanford or something?
I don't remember. It was like last minute she was going to come up. She was supposed to come up here and then she couldn't. And then she was going to come, but it was already too late at that moment. But
she saw the weather and was like, man, that stuff ruins your skin. I can't be coming out there. I need this Mediterranean climate. Yeah. Don't blame her. No, I'm just wondering though, with like there's like this, burgeoning nationalism and fascist kind of blanket that's going all over the place right now, and I wonder if there's any kind of pushback with speculative fiction as a means of being in conversation with what's happening real time right now.
I mean, it's a mix because I'd say about like half of what I've seen lately has been written recently and translated recently, and then the other half is like things that were written anywhere from 10 to 20 years ago.
Yeah.
So it's like why that's being translated now, I don't know. I think it might just be because there's money for that particular thing. There's lots of Japanese speculative fiction coming out. A lot of it, I mean, some of it was written in the 80s, but now they have the ability to publish it with like Minnesota's, new Parallel Futures and, joining Haikasoro Vertical and Kurodahan, and, they just have, I guess, the money, the means to do it. But some of it was written like a long time ago. So it's hard to.
I'm just looking. This one was 2014, I think, and then
Radiant Terminus. Yeah, we did this pretty quickly after it won the Prix Medici. We bought the rights shortly thereafter, and Jeffrey started translating it around that time. But it took a while because this is pretty long.
I can't even imagine translating this.
Yeah, there's some bonkers stuff in here. I'm like, how would you even do that?
Yeah, I know, it's wild. So should we get into it?
Sure. Yeah. No, because I thought for sure, like the segue, as they say in French, the segue like would be, with the environmentalism piece of it, right?
Before we get to that, we got to play our game. And then the two games is the segue, and then that they both lead into that. So the game that we started that you participated in unwittingly, Brian, is that every week our guest gets a name of a post-exotic writer, and they must describe what that writer is, like without relation to like their writing or whatever, but one of the names, how they envision them. So last week, Haley envisioned, what was it? Oh, I've got it right here. Hold on. It was Haley described Kirill Gampo as a fat tie-dye hippie, smoking a lot of weed and dispensing wisdom.
I thought that was
that's low-hanging fruit. Gampo, It's like,
Gampo is pretty solid, yeah. So this week, Rachel, you get Roman Nachtigal. Roman, I think Nachtigal, I guess. Roman Nachtigal. Okay.
I'm sorry, but the first thing that popped into my head was related to the very first name. So what was the first name that Brian said was a tired
Maria Schrag.
Right. So I would think that this guy is like still a tennis instructor who's got like a mustache, but only like a mustache and like one of those like a dad hat kind of thing.
Oh yes, okay.
You know what I mean? And then like and
a canvas snapback, yeah.
Yeah. And he like drinks like I don't know, some sort of like Fanta or something, and
Oh yeah, right on.
you know what I mean? And like hits on all the young girls, but they're all like,
he's a young girl hitter on her.
Yeah. Like,
Okay, I
with
wasn't
the
sure if you were
tennis,
gonna go young girls or like the moms, the divorced moms.
The young girls, because the moms are like, I'm not even going near this.
No, he's more in that Pessoa realm of
He's not
fighting his inner pederast.
Is it a Baldwin that's in Squid and the Whale? That's the tennis instructor.
I think so.
It is. I think it is a Baldwin, maybe Billy or Steven, like that guy. but this one's on. Yeah.
Yeah. That's him.
That's
nice.
Awesome. So Roman
short little white shorts.
Short little white shorts is going to be part of this. I'm writing these all in. There's already a blog post started with everyone's descriptions for each one of the names. So it'll be up there.
All right, super random AWP idea. Do a one-off of a short run of line drawings of each one of these descriptions with the person's name under it, and just do canvas totes of like Roman Noctibar, and then there's just a picture of a tennis guy, and then it's like, who is that? Oh, you don't know that writer?
Roman
it's obviously Roman Noctigal.
You're gonna have that. All these have books
make like
associated
this
with
giant
them.
collage on your wall or something.
I'm getting all these from the Post-Exoticism and 10 Lessons, Lesson 11, and it's from the bibliography of all post-exotic works. So it already has titles that are associated with Roman Noctigal, and Maria Schrag and Kirill Gompo. They all have books. The other thing, though, Brian, related to that as a promotion that we came up with was that because all of the plants, the environmentalism that you mentioned, all the plants that are made up names and that aren't real, and that Kronauer sort of names in that one chapter, he almost becomes like an atom-like figure, giving names to all the plants. None of those are real. So we said that anyone who could draw, if you draw and send in draw one of those plants, like whatever you think it would look like, and send it in, and like we'll show them on here, and then we can the winner can get a copy of all of his books. But we also thought that if we got enough of them, we could do like broadsides of all the plants from Radiant Terminus, and to give that out at AWP or wherever, because it would be pretty cool. Like if people drew weird biology things.
Yeah.
It'd be a great accompaniment, a field guide to Radiant Terminus.
Yeah.
And it's just, toxic.
Cool.
This plant is toxic. Everyone, toxic.
Exactly.
Do that. Yeah. Toxic.
I love looking at books of old like horticulture or like drawings of like botanical whatever art illustrations, and some of them are so weird, but they're real, and you could just copy that stuff and just
give it a new name. I mean, it's in making the name of, or assigning the name to it that makes it weird and interesting.
Yeah,
because there's one section in here that has more names in it. It's a later chapter, but where Grandma is asking him questions. But we'll go through it like we did last week, where we went through like chapter by chapter. This week we're going through chapters 4 through 8, and I'll sum it up, and then you guys can jump in with things. So for chapter 4, if I could read my writing, not great, is the one where Kronauer wakes up in his like cell or room, where the two sisters had dragged him to or carried him to after he passed out at the end of chapter 3 after hearing Solovey's voice in his head. The two. What's that?
That's got to be the greatest nightmare. Like having poems put in your head.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, just too much. just even like one. and so they get him. They help him get clean, which he cleans up. They tell him they used to go visit Grandma, and that Solovey and Morgovian, who is the wife of the woman that he saved, right? Samaya, I forget, but whatever. One of the husbands of one of the girls are off to try and save his friend. So it's sort of like a setup chapter of like, he's okay. He's in this commune. He's able to they have hot water because of the core radiating the water and making it too hot. But now he's like clean and he's fresh and he's supposed to go see Grandma and figure out what the hell's going on. So I'll tell you that I have the one main thing that I took away from this chapter, the big one, aside from the description of the daughters, which becomes very important, we should probably talk about, but is that the number of times that it references his shame in here is astronomical. Because at the end of that last chapter, when he had the mind rape and goes through the like emotional internal things where it's not just physically been like abused or whatever, penetrated, I guess, that there's also like the emotional part of it that's so devastating to him, and that immediately afterwards he's like, he doesn't want to make eye contact, he feels shame, he's sad, he's weird about it, and like doesn't feel good, all of which makes total sense. And in here, on 3 separate occasions, on like 80, 85, and 89, they all reference like Kronauer wasn't able to meet the gaze for more than a second, he felt ashamed. 85, he was only to express his shame that he finally spoke. And then 89 is the self-loathing weighed him down retroactively. Like, it's sort of like his character has been permanently altered by that experience in the last chapter. And I think it's nice how it like sort of comes up in here and reinforces like Solovey's like pure evil and power and the horror that Solovey can be.
Don't you have a thing against the word gaze in fiction?
I didn't edit it. Tell Kaya.
No, I'm just no, but no, like just like it's a one. I remember I had a story that had gaze in it like 3 times. You're like, fuck this word. And just like you got so mad at me. So what about the word gaze? Do you hate? So why does gaze bother you?
Gaze, except in certain instances.
Gaze. Let's be very gaze.
Yeah, G-A-Z. Yeah. Like a gaze of something, because people use it as shorthand for like staring, and it's supposed to be a more loaded and different sort of word. And it's generally like the male gaze upon things, or it's like constructing a subjectivity. But people use it like I gazed out the window, and that's not right. Like you're just looking out the window. It's like overshooting and giving like more to that moment and that action than it actually deserves. And then when you use it right, when it is like the male gaze upon things, then that has a better meaning and like does construct a subjectivity. So when it's just a synonym for looking, it's dumb and it makes no sense. It has to be used right, and then it's okay. But people are lazy, and
so it's like diction police, basically.
And if it's a French book, it'll have gaze in it like a million times, like without fail. It's like every French book is like every French movie. Like, say it opens with a guy gazing at the woman longingly on the bed, impotent. Phone rings.
It's at a beach watching a young girl undress. Mm-hmm. It's always like that. Ugh.
All the same. So it's sort of smoky outside. Yeah.
Well, the 85 has the gaze on it like how many times? I think at the bottom, when they're talking about how do we pronounce this? Hanko?
Sure.
Bogulian?
Sure.
And it says she still had an expressionless gaze.
Yep.
She's the one with the 2 different eye colors.
Yeah.
And she looked at Kronauer with her 2 different eyes. Okay. That had no white. So I was like, what? The one gold and the other black. Okay. Kronauer looked away. He wasn't used to her gaze, and he couldn't decide if it was attractive, magnificent, or monstrous. And I was noticing all the eyes in this section. Focusing. Everything's going to be a riff on eyes. Everybody in their eyes, Solovey's eyes, and no white. Like, I don't know. That's kind of, is that a thing? Like, can people really have that with like there's no whites? I
don't think so, but there's a girl I know from high school who I still know, but like she probably doesn't listen to this. I'm not gonna say her name, but she had very big brown, like the same color of like her pupil eyes, so it almost looked like she had no pupil, like it almost looked like she had no whites. It looked like one solid color. So I can see that, but no, this is clearly like some robotic weird ass shit. It's like there's been a nuclear holocaust. Like I think that her eyes are probably a little messed up.
Okay, I would I would
hazard a guess.
They keep taught, like it's just like over and over again about the eyes as if they're like hypnotic, just like Solovey's are. I think.
Yeah. Do you think like so? It comes up later, but he describes in this chapter, he describes the 3 women, the 3 daughters on page 84, more or less, but mostly in relation to the first 2. So just as Samaya Smith seemed mistrustful, timid, and even inhibited, so Miriam Umarik seemed resplendent, with long flowing chestnut hair that came down to her chest, and even if she kept her back straight while walking, she had a sensual way of moving her legs, her hips. Her eyes shone. She knew that her movements could bother men, especially Kronauer, and he wasn't embarrassed at all. And then there's Hanko Vogulian, with her eyes had no white, and they were very dissimilar. Describing what you say, but the over the course of the next few chapters, he starts to become more and more attracted and enamored with Hanko, whereas at the beginning he's like Miriam and her like shapely figure is like so attractive to him, and then later on he's becoming this Hanko, almost as if her eyes like hypnotize him in some ways, which doesn't seem dissimilar from Solovey's ability to enter people's minds.
And is that, I'm trying to remember, is that the shirt that he's wearing? The husband of Hanko?
I think it's the
because Gamma mentions it and he like gets defensive and then
no. He's got the shirt of Miriam's husband on because Gamma says she's married. And Hanko's not, because Hanko was married, but is a widow because her husband disappeared, and that's in this chapter too, disappeared 2 days after. My favorite part about that, so he vanishes.
This
and
is turning into like some Edwardian romance.
I'm telling you, it's like Jessica Jones and the Purple Man. It's just like he's just going around controlling people and vanishing their asses. Yeah. My favorite part about that, it's like everyone's like, we know you did it.
Yeah.
There's like one line in particular where they're like, he's like, no, he was completely innocent, but no one actually believed him. But like, there's no, where was that? I forget. But it's great because they're just basically like, yeah, whatever, man. We know you killed him. We know you did it.
Like, well, if he is dead, he'll come back to life.
Oh yeah, you could just bring him back to life with the heavy and the lively and the deadly water.
Like the other guy that keeps dying, and then they keep basically like smacking him back into life, and dropping the water on him, and he's like, "Well, I'm back," and then he dies again. And then
here's the part. So so when he disappears, then there was no trace of his existence on Earth. Which is an amazing way of putting it. It's not like he vanished. There's no trace of his existence on Earth. In front of the pioneer's house, there was no cigarette butt nor lighter to be found. And when she was asked about the whole thing much later, the Grandma Ugdal grumbled that in all probability, Schulhoff had been swallowed up by a black hole, which nobody believed, except for herself and Solovey.
Just the black hole came by.
Just sucked them up. Yeah, no big deal.
It happens.
Nowhere to be found on this Earth. But this also, this is the one that there's this subtle, it's not so subtle because we already know that they're in conflict, but on 81, there's the bit where Solovey and Kronauer meet each other and are walking back, and it's tense. And it says they were now talking without looking at each other, like two people who hate each other, but who, in waiting for darkness to come and witnesses to go, had decided not to tear each other apart yet. And there's that sort of foreshadowing or setting up their conflict right there too. Everything's all these pieces are getting put into place. It feels like with this 4 through 8 section that we're doing.
Yeah, I don't want to impose my feelings or thoughts onto the text, but I keep thinking this is some sort of commentary on Europe's current state with being scared and immigration and xenophobia and environmentalism. There's all these little current political hot buttons that are going on there right now, and these seem to be in some sort of a way of exploring that.
Would you
the distrust of each this distrust of the stranger, the this bizarre kind of patriarchy that's taking place with the mind raper?
Well, I would say more than patriarchy. That guy is straight up fascist.
But yeah, I mean fascists have just destroyed their last stronghold. Nobody knows about it. Well, we're in our own world over here. We don't even know about that, or
with the weird twist. I mean, I think we'd have to really trace that out too, because if you're using the immigrant thing, then is Kronauer the immigrant that's coming into the country with the?
I'm not sure. Yeah, again, I don't want to impose that on there, but I can't help it. It kind of just keeps kind of itching the back of my mind a little bit that there's something. He's in conversation with something that's going on,
and there's the part too of how even though they're all we want to get away from this second Soviet Union, that's why Solovey ran off to this faraway camp and Grandma Ugdal's there and all that, so they're not part of the Soviet Union. There's still the line about how they're well, we're still never gonna have capitalism here. We're not crazy.
Yeah,
that capitalism is fucked. We share everything. It's all good. So it is, it's got a lot of twists and turns to it.
But Solovey doesn't he seem then kind of a kind of Stalin figure where it's okay, we're gonna have, you know, communism, but okay, I'm actually going to be a, you know, a dictator. But you know, we're still gonna like, I mean, but Solove never really wanted that. Like he was always just like, I'm gonna do my own thing.
Yeah. He wanted to be an individual within a communist structure, whereas the communists wanted to erase the individualism.
Yeah, and he's still like, but I'm still in charge of everyone because I can go into your mind.
Yeah, it is kind of like if using your metaphor of like the things are in conversation. I wonder too, but it is that part of like the desire to have. This is going to write too much onto it, but the desire to have like a more socialist, egalitarian living situation, and yet and be individual within that. But once you're individual and trying to make that work, the power corrupts absolutely sort of idea, and he is that one. Because like part of they all want to get away from it because they all want to have their own existence to some degree. And like and find connection, which we talked about last week too. Like everyone wants to connect, but no one's really capable of doing it right, except maybe when Kronauer, because there's so many times that anytime people are in connection, like especially men and women, the men are violent. And everyone's trained that men are going to be violent. And then Kronauer doesn't do anything with Samaya or with Vasilisa, whatever it was, which makes him like a good sort of character, but he's also like clearly has a lot of those the sort of negative undertones built into him because he looks at the women in the same way. He has the male gaze of like Miriam and even later on Hanko, but I don't know. There's something there, Brian, but I don't know how to unpack it all yet. It'll come clear maybe in later parts too.
Yeah.
There's a lot to go.
It's like, just a big ruse so he could share his poetry with people.
Yeah, birds, all about birds. So chapter 5, Kronauer finally goes to visit Grandma, and then pricks himself on the turntable. And this is, I think, one of the crucial parts of this whole section that we're doing, where he picks up so the turntable being like there's the cylinders that have the crazy ass poetry from Solove on it. There's kind of post-exotic nonsense poetry, and there's a turntable, and he pricks his finger, and there's blood, and there's like a real crucial crazy ass paragraph there, which I really love. I'll just read a bit of it. So he pricks his finger and says he was wrong. Even in admitting he isn't living or dead or dog, he has blood on Solove's phonograph and fallen into the world of Solove's dreams. A prick was enough. A few microliters of blood have become the gateway from one world to the other. Here, everything is the same, and Kronauer doesn't notice. Everything the same, but he has changed. And then it goes on with the longer part that begins with, like, he has entered a parallel reality, a bardic reality, a magical and stammering death, a stutter reality, a magic malevolence, a tumor of the present. And there's the idea that once he's been, and it comes up again when he talks to Hanko in the next chapter, I believe, or the one after that, where she's like, you shouldn't have touched his stuff. Because when she's touched his stuff, like, you're fucked. He has you now. Like, you're in his control. So like there's something that goes on there, and like the idea that he goes into like a parallel world brings up like a lot of interesting questions for like what's happening here, what the setting is, which I think I have a note about in a little bit later. I have a theory a little bit later.
So I don't want to get too far, but I'm wondering, because I haven't read all of this, but if there's like something different happening with the way these folks are affected by the fallout and the radiation compared to other places.
Yeah.
The way Gamma is explained is like this crazy, like, how are you alive kind of a person, right?
I like how he knows who she is.
Yeah. And then this guy with his ability to like go into people's minds, and then the crazy eyes that they have. Like there's something going on with whatever the water they bathe in, or the like the Kool-Aid they're drinking, so to speak. Like it's doing something different, it seems, compared to everybody else.
Yeah, some people are allowed to live forever. I mean, it really is entering into like a fantastical like landscape of like what's possible given this. Like one of the indication that I really like is in this section where oh shoot, what is it? It's the part where Grandma's like, oh, you know, if you screw up, he's going to torture you for 1,709 years. And then later on, that'll come back as like, oh shit, you're going to be tortured for like 1,864 years. And like the numbers are insane. And yet they're like, seem realistic or as possible, seeing as these people live essentially forever. especially her and Solove. But my other favorite part of
youngest
this
daughter. I thought for sure, like when he met the youngest daughter at the fountain or whatever, like, oh, she's dead.
Yeah.
Like he like carries her corpse basically to this place, and like now she's alive or whatever. Like she's fine. Like there's something about this place that's magical or whatever. You know what I mean?
So, like,
there's something.
It's something that seems to imply, like, I think this holds throughout. Rachel, you've read the whole thing too, so maybe because I don't remember as clearly, but like it's been years now. But the idea that it's sort of set up so that the radiation in some cases keeps certain people alive forever, and everyone else is gone. But there's like a certain like group of people that can live forever, and allows this all to play out in sort of a fantasy landscape of sorts.
Yeah.
Where
I mean, it's kind of like the way I was seeing it was, they keep talking about people being alive. No, wait, they're dead, or are they in a dream, or what? I mean, and like automatically you think like, okay, it's kind of purgatory. It's a it's a kind of liminal type place. But I mean, I guess like kind of in general, it's like Volodine is asking us to think about questions of how do we know what we know about anything? Do we say we're conscious, but what does that mean? Is Solove a kind of godlike figure, and everybody, is it hell? Like, is it? I mean, it's basically just kind of destabilizing where this is. Is it Earth? I mean, is it, what even kind of place is this? And yet it looks enough like Earth.
right.
And it's like believable, and it's like just on the point of not being believable, but still believable.
Mm-hmm. It is enough of like the recognizable elements that you can continue treating it as if it were realistic, even knowing that there's things that can bend all reality. It's like Twin Peaks.
Yeah, the little I know of it. Sorry.
You're welcome, Brian. My favorite line in that chapter, though, is when she's talking about his poetry, and she's like, "These are complete works for no audience."
Yeah.
Grandma's my favorite so far. Again.
I love her.
She's hilarious. So
are we still on 5?
Yeah, but we can go to 6 because 5 is super, super short.
Yeah.
It's just like a few pages where she's like warning him, like, don't get involved with the Solove's daughters. Like, don't even think for a second about hurting her. And Kronauer's like, why would I hurt her? And like, she's married. Like, stay away. Like, it's like the craziest like non sequiturs, but they keep like, it's like so clear that there are like warnings for everything. And to stay away from Solove and to like do all of that. And then, but like this little wound has opened up a moment where everything's changed for him. And that obviously will bear some fruit. Seems too important not to.
Mm-hmm.
With 6 though, is where where Grandma sort of interrogates him, because she's like, basically like, I need to make sure that you're like, that you're safe, that you're a good communist, you're a good Soviet, because she's still like kind of a believer in the system and wants to do all that. So she quizzes him on the plans, gives him an assessment, and then makes him listen to. He ends up hearing one of Solove's poems. So this one's sort of 6 is very much a continuation of chapter 5. In the sense that they're still in that place, whereas the only thing that major that happens at 5 is the pricking of the finger. In 6, it's more of that Grandma's interaction with him, which I do. One of my favorite parts of here is where she's like talking about what she's interrogating him, and she's like, after it's on 109, after just a short little interrogation about mere trifles, this pathetic soldier has revealed who he is. An unsuitable kind of person who let his wife be violated by the fanatics of capitalism, who shot the last-ditch officer without trial, who abandoned his comrades on the vast steppes, and who in the forest hurt Samaya Schmidt. She just sums him up in like 4 quick sentences or clauses. Even though he didn't hurt Samaya Schmidt, which is the big, and Samaya never defends him.
It's interesting that there's that. It's brought up all the way throughout with the stranger coming into town, right? That Kronauer is going to hurt. Like, are you going to hurt them? Don't hurt them. Don't hurt this. Like there's this fear that this man's going to immediately hurt the women that are in this area.
Yeah, and that he has hurt them. Like, they assume that he had hurt Samaya, and
What are those books that he's reading that they give him to read that they talk about?
Yeah. That's the next thing I was going to say too. Maria, it's not Maria Qual. It is.
Yeah, which one is that?
Jeez, which one is it? What section is that? I think it's in the next chapter. Yeah, it is Maria Qual. It's in the next chapter on 113. But yeah, anytime that he goes to the library, they give him all these books that are by like the post-exotic feminist writers that are like explaining exactly like why all men are evil and everything's like dangerous. And if you think about anything, you're entering into the patriarchal system and like all the misbalances of that. So yeah, so they're like, that's their starting point, it seems.
Yeah, and I mean, do you think that he's also, we're also kind of, I mean, because then I started thinking, are we in one of those novels? Like, is this a novel? I mean, because, or like, is he wandering in? Is he like one of those kind of, classic like, character escapes from novel, and goes into other novel? I mean, is Kronauer? Because it seems like he's wandering around saying these things like, wait a minute, I didn't hurt anybody, and everybody's like, don't hurt her. Don't hurt. He's like, no, but like, I don't even want to hurt. Don't hurt her. It's like you walk into like a pre-programmed, like holodeck type thing, and this is all playing out. And even though you're talking, no one is really listening because you're not really interacting with them. This is the stuff I got.
There is too, like, there's a bit there. Solovey always says that his tagline is that Kronauer's fate is to have dying women nearby.
Yeah, like this is the plot of Kronauer's life, and this is how it's gonna.
Maybe that's more to that metaphor of propaganda and ideology of like the way that there's that in last week, I forget where it was, but there was that quote about like that they didn't ever realize that they weren't communicating with each other because they used like the ideology of the Soviet system to sort of release themselves or like make themselves feel better or like rationalize what was going on. And I feel like there's like a bit of that, like there's the Maria Qual or all these kind of this viewpoint on what the men are, what he would be within that is like part of the ideology of like, that's how everything works. This is how it works. So you have to fit this role. And there's no one connects. They all just like already have this pre-assumed beliefs that are in there. Solovey's going to have to torture him because like he fucked up Samaya because why wouldn't he have?
Right.
He found her in it.
It's part of the plot.
That's what it is. It's like it also Twin Peaks thing is like who dreams the dreamer sort of vibe of like who is in control here. I
have a quick question about that. So mentioning about like who wrote this book, or if we go all the way back to page 11, there's in the middle of the page there's the bullet point that starts the new paragraph, and then 3 lines down it says Kronauer looks like many of us.
Yep.
Right. And then at first glance, he looks like okay. So I circled that. I was like, narrator question mark with that. And then go to 26.
That's the other one. Yep.
And halfway down, there's another bullet point. And then in the first paragraph or the second paragraph after that bullet says, his view of the world was illuminated by proletarian morality, self-sacrifice, altruism, and confrontation. And like all of us, of course. So it's like, it only popped up a couple times, but there was this quick wait, it kind of tweaked with your mind a little bit, like who's writing this, who's narrating this?
Well, even more to that point on page 43, it has like it's a longer sentence, but like
I picked the easy ones.
The engineer Barguzin, who helped Grandma Ugdal as best he could in sorting and processing the radioactive trash, didn't have access to the crates containing Solovey's archives, despite Solovey being his father-in-law, as we will come to learn. Which is like real narratorial interjection, because it's saying like, it's like withholding that bit of information while telling it to you as if like the narrator's on the ride along with the reader. So yeah, so there is something with that, and it's not clear at this moment in time. And I don't think that occurs in these 4 chapters.
No,
I think it was just in those first 3.
Yeah.
It's a bit like set it up and then has left it for the time being. And then Grandma Ugdal again has like good humor of where she talks about the spiders. And then 105, it's the flies. The spiders didn't survive, but the flies did. All the so-called experts are wrong about that. I respected those scholars back in my childhood, but after living so long, I learned that they often just spouted bullshit.
You just stole my favorite line.
Oh, I'm so sorry.
That was my favorite.
You can bring it back. That's the best.
I love that.
I mentioned this, sort of vaguely alluded to on Twitter, and then I told Rachel before we started recording, that I did have a Volodine dream last night where like my room was infected with spiders, like big gross ass spiders, and they're like on my pillow, and like I was trying to go to sleep, and I was like gonna put one pillow on top of it and then sleep on the spider because that would kill it. And then I was like, that's not a good idea. And I took the pillow off, and I was like, it had like a little dog head, and I was trying to beat it with a book, but I couldn't like move my arm fast enough to get to it, and it started crawling. And I noticed that there are a bunch of other ones, and I was like, woke up, and I was like, oh, God damn it. Goddamn spiders. Like, this is not okay. And thank you, Volodine. I read this in bed, fell asleep after finishing it, and dreamt about spiders, and it's all because of you. Because of this book.
I'm going to have a spider nightmare tonight. I just know it.
Yep. So 7. So let's move on to chapter 7. So Kronauer helps out. This is what my notes are. Kronauer helps out Miriam. He's attracted to her, and he helps out fixing her fire hydrant. She warns them against fooling with Solove's stuff. Those are my total notes. That is my summary of that chapter. Don't mess with Solove's stuff. I think that's kind of how she puts it, though. It's like, yeah, I thought you definitely shouldn't have played with that, she muttered. What got into you? Couldn't you contain yourself? I thought you weren't that stupid. You could have tried not to touch my father's things.
I barely touched it.
I didn't even mean to.
Kronauer explained. I touched the membrane with my hand. It pricked me like some kind of angry animal.
The animal imagery in this section is weird too, because it refers to animal there, but it also refers to her walking as her shoes pounded the earth like the hooves of an aroused bull. just a choice.
As long as the bull's not gazing at you.
Yeah, as long as it's not gazing, it's okay. But yeah, this one is another transitional one where I think that they're moving him into the important part. Wait, is it in here? I think it's in this one where like he's like, why do we get all this stuff? Or is that in the next chapter? There's one of the chapters where he's like, just to
go back to the stuff, like the bottom of 115, right? I probably just passed over this and didn't even think about it. Those aren't normal things, Miriam Umerick said. Don't just touch them. It's too dangerous. They're part of s07e. When he figures out you wanted to take it, he'll get angry and you'll be stuck with him for 1,000 years. Really? 1,000 years? Kronauer said sadly. Like I said that sarcastically, but he says it
right.
1,000 years?
And then she says 1,826 years or more.
Yeah.
Or more.
Those numbers are my favorite. The first time I read this, I loved all of that.
What the hell is going on here?
It's like, so we'll jump a little bit. So
Crazy
8, we'll do
pills.
7 and 8 together. So 8 has a bit about his reading again. This is where Maria Kroll shows up, or Qual or whatever, and it talks about how he's given all these books by the feminist post-exotic writers, and then he reflects on how strange it is that they have all this food and supplies, and that it's still treated like a socialist area. And then he ends up desiring Hanko, even though he's aware that he's violating all the things that he's been reading about, and that he's falling into the traps that Maria Qual says is like are bad. He's aware of it. But the two things of like not knowing where the food and supplies come from, and they're real vague about it. He's like, where is all this stuff? And they're just, I don't know, people come by. Don't worry about it. Just don't think about it. It's one of the parts where I feel like my theory at this moment, based on what we read, is that he is inside. So entered into, by touching s07e's stuff, has dangerous powers, an extension of s07e. And now he can control your mind for 1,826 years or whatever, that he has now entered that reality of s07e's mind. That's why there's no worry about food. There's no worry about any of that stuff, and everything's possible, is that he is inside that consciousness of the fascist, wannabe socialist, whatever sort of setup, that now he's operating within those rules, which ties in what you're saying, Brian, about him sort of walking around like a character within a pre-written thing, that he's now no longer outside of that. Like he's part of that world, and whatever that means. I mean, you can take this book in a bunch of different ways, obviously, but like that would be one way that sort of like taking the things at face value and trying to make some sort of system to understand why weird shit can happen. That sort of makes sense to me at this moment.
Okay. Sure.
Yeah.
I accept that.
I'm seeing too a dichotomy between masculine and feminine.
There's a lot of that
in relation to like political alignment, right? Whereas something socialist is going to be more maternalistic and caring, right?
Yeah.
So you're seeing that, and then there's when they're talking about don't hurt, like the stranger, it's like almost treating him like he's like some capitalist stranger that's going to come in and be aggressive and like do what he wants with things, like in a capitalistic way.
That's why
more like forceful and masculine kind of shading or whatever. But and which makes it really weird that this guy that's inside this thriving community is like this terrible, like, forceful person. So it's kind of, I guess maybe the take home is everything is screwed up and we're all gonna die.
This is yeah. That does go back to 99, where Grandma Ugdal is interrogating him. Like part of the interrogation, she explains in detail. She knew, of course, that really trusting him would take months of investigation and imprisonment, along with multiple autobiographies written during sleep deprivation. But for now, she didn't see any reason to give him trouble. He had to tell her in detail about the period of military retreat when he and his comrades had fired at a demented officer. That was a gray area, typical behavior for an adventurer susceptible to anarchist impulses rather than Bolshevik intelligence. On the one hand, she approved that he hadn't let himself be trapped in a suicide mission, and on the other, she wondered if opening fire on a superior wasn't, at the end of the day, an awfully leftist act. So she's trying to, that's part of why he's sent there, to have her like sort him in some sense, or like get a read on him as the foreigner passing through that interrogation. And her acknowledgement of like using all those Soviet things of like self-criticism, under duress, to tell the truth, to get to the bottom of who he is. Like getting to the bottom of who he is like, she's like, I can't get there because it would take all this other torture and investigation. And like,
I'm too tired to torture tonight. Yeah.
We'll just let it go for now. It's gray area.
Who's got time?
Yeah, who's got time?
I gotta feed the core.
Yeah, I gotta tell the core some stories.
Just waterboard him with the magic stuff.
Waterboard him with the core.
Yeah.
With the hot water. That's a
I gotta keep I have to keep my mind off of it, but I keep getting like I can't say his name right. Stoli vodka guy.
We would decide to call him Solove. We don't know.
I keep getting like these like Prospero vibes from Tempest, you know?
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
With the daughters and like the magic and I shouldn't go there necessarily because I don't know enough about either, but I keep getting like a Prospero vibe from him.
With Caliban.
I don't know who Caliban is, but
it's the husband just wandering around doing whatever he wants.
Sure, it falls apart very quickly. But.
Oh no! Maybe Caliban's the husband that dies over and over again.
Sure.
Yeah. That might.
Where is the place? It might have been in the previous. No, I think it was in this one. Where was the place that where they were talking about the like technology that that the second Soviet. Oh, here we go. Okay, it was 101. This seems so. I don't know why this was here. It just seemed like it's so strange. So at the top of 101, when they were talking about the phonograph. Okay, so the phonograph itself.
Yeah.
So they believe the enemy had weapons able to remotely destroy the mechanisms of electronic devices. And so they kickstarted a pilot plant for reinventing engines that ran on springs or other forces that didn't require power.
Steampunk.
Yeah, exactly. It makes me think of all the different kind of sci-fi, like the trope where because you're not connected. So I automatically was thinking of Battlestar Galactica and some others where it's like because you're not connected, you're safe. So you get to such a so far ahead technologically that now you're screwed. And so by like just cutting off the connectivity, which is ironic considering that they're trying to rebuild this kind of socialist society, and they cut themselves off multiple ways from connecting to anybody, but this just seemed, it was just like the steampunk, and they're still using it. It's a phonograph. It's not even like a recent thing. I was
like the trope is always with nuclear stuff, EMP, right?
Yeah.
EMP goes off, and like electronic circuits no longer work, but an old thing like a tube amplifier would work still, or
you
a
can
phonograph would work
crank that gramophone.
Yeah.
Right.
It also it also is sort of like a crafty trick to like be able to allow for that to feel realistic.
Sure.
Like you've got like fucking like nuclear cores growing in the ground speaking to people, but then like how is he playing like these cylinders? And like you're like, oh, because they had to make this new technology because like everything was going, there's no more MP3s. like oh yeah, okay, that totally. That
damn it.
Absolutely.
The fallout wiped out my Zune.
I just like the phonograph itself is, I've been very interested in the history of the phonograph, which I know is a very weird thing to say, but I read a lot about it. Wow. And it was, how Edison came up with it, and then it was like, okay, I got a thing. Now what's it for? And no one could figure it out. It was like 1876, and no one could figure it out.
Originally, the wax cylinders before it was a flat, record or something, right?
Yeah. And then they were like, meh, and then it just like died away for like 20 years. And then they revived it again, and we're like, maybe it's good for dictation in an office. People are like, no. And then they finally hit on the idea of, wait, we can record and play music, and then like try to get people to like they would have these like elaborate shows where you would have like a live singer, and then you'd have the machine, and like the audience would have to like somehow guess like who was the real person singing and which was the machine. They would have it behind a curtain or something.
Isn't this just The Masked Singer?
Yeah.
Bad pop culture reference.
Yeah.
Which is some terrible show that I've not seen, but that's wild. I didn't know about that. I knew that there was a huge delay that he made it, and they're like, I don't know what this would be for, but I never heard about the singing part. That's pretty cool.
It was like this like big, like they launched these shows, and they'd have like fill up like theaters, and people would have to guess, and they'd have it behind a curtain, a real person and the machine. And it's like, was it the real person? Was it the machine? Does it matter? Do we need real people anymore? Or should we just record everything and never have a live performance again? I mean, this is when people are like, well, live music's dead.
Yeah.
Metallica would have squashed that. That would have never, if Lars Ulrich was around back then.
It's like a Turing test, but a musical Turing test.
It is. But the fact that people are like at the very early 20th century going, live music is dead, live performance is dead, we don't need that anymore, we just need people to record. And you're like, they were saying this, it just blows my mind that they were saying this, so long ago. It's just like when people were able to watch movies at home. Well, there go the theaters, and it never happens.
Now that when people have a Kindle Fire or whatever it's called, books are gone.
No more books. No more books.
No one's ever going to read a book again.
No. I don't know what that means, but it's just a really interesting kind of, I don't know why, people declare all this stuff as dead, and it continues on anyway. I mean, what does that say about our use of technology and our blending of different technologies?
Yeah. It's like is there any, I'm trying to think of a good technology that stopped. Because most things don't. There's just like things that are added on.
Digital
our department for the first time stopped. They fax machine broke, and they're like, we're not getting a new one. We're done with fax machines. But like you can still fax stuff through your phone. Like it's not, it's like send to a printer is faxing, but just without the number. Like it's the same thing in a way. Like I can fax something to an office that they can then print, but it's the same as like sending them a PDF. So like the transformation of that information is not terribly different.
Technology is weird like that though, because I was like here in Rochester with Kodak. Like Kodak actually had the patent for the digital camera.
Yeah.
But that's
Yeah.
what killed them because they didn't
Yes.
embrace it. Like,
Yeah. Because it wasn't monetizable the right way.
Right.
Like
They
it
didn't know
wasn't.
how to.
right? Isn't
The
that
problem
weird?
with the technology is killing things. It's never the other technologies that die. It's the businesses that don't know, that want to retain the old business model and can't adapt. Those ones die, and that's seems to be the biggest problem.
Like in this, everything is dead. So
On here, yeah.
at some point, right? Like,
We'll just go, or it's everything's dead, but some people get to go on and on and on and on
for thousands of years.
And other people are like, "When are you gonna die already?"
Yeah. Why aren't you dead?
Yeah. Well, what were the things that Grandma was throwing into the core? Because it was like this long list,
shit, isn't it?
It just seemed like a mix of like old technology, like newer technology.
Right.
Well, it's like a witch in a cauldron
Yeah,
making a magic potion.
absolutely.
Right? Eye of Newt and tail
Right.
of whatever. Yeah.
And a computer.
Yeah, and a computer.
There you go.
Yeah, she always opens it up and just like whatever crap that they have that needs to get thrown down there gets chucked in.
Tables and chairs. So I'm 31. Tables and chairs, television sets, tractor motors, charred school teachers who had been forgotten in their classrooms, computers, wolves, squirrels, inflated toothpaste tubes.
You clothes that looked perfect but had only to be shaken to set up a haze of sparks.
Voladine was smoking some good.
Yeah.
It's like
listening to The Wall or something.
It is interesting because it's like, what would you find if there was like a nuclear holocaust tomorrow? Like, what would be left over? And it's like this kind of crazy detritus, like the ashes of the teacher that was like in the room as the bomb went off, and there's like it's like frozen, like pointing to the wall.
It's so weird. I know it's a bad movie, but for whatever reason, it hit me at the right time in my life. I loved Waterworld. I watched it in the theaters like 3-4 times. But like, right, the world's is drowned in water, and there's like civilizations falling apart. But like, Spam cans are worth like so much, like just the random stuff that floats. Like, you make clothes out of tire treads because it looks hardcore and post-apocalyptic or whatever. But just like those weird little details of what's gonna last, what's gonna be worth something. Yeah,
it's like anything. It really doesn't matter. It's just a big trash heap of, I don't know.
That's why I thought, like, all these preppers and stuff, I'm just gonna like stockpile baby wipes, because when the world goes to shit, you could just want a baby wipe? Hell yeah! Oh my god, a baby wipe!
Get rich off that shit. Yeah.
I could wipe my
bacterial
face
hand
with
soap.
this. See, like when he got to civilization, the first thing was like, "Stay away from me. I smell bad."
Yeah.
Right.
Baby
That's
wipes.
for that weird
$1,000
shame thing too.
Yeah, I'm gonna. I'll be trading baby wipes for food, for slaves,
clean water,
whatever's around. Yeah, I'll take 15 people for a pack of baby wipes. They're mine.
But I mean, all of this could just be Kronauer's hallucination, right? Like
he could be dying. He could be dying in the field,
laying there dying, and like he's imagining all this stuff, being influenced by all those books that he's read and
his adventure books.
There was that Bardo. There was that Bardo.
Right.
There's a very quick reference to like.
Yep. We mentioned that last time too, and it's like and it could be like his hero's journey. Like he's now entered into like the first challenge, the first like setup of the conflict. So he's on his way trying to save his friends.
Oh, his friends are dead. They're all dead.
But they can't find him. I didn't mention that, but they do come back to that where Sylvie and whatever his name go off to try and find them, and are like, nope, there's nothing. And he's like,
oh wait, because
bullshit,
that lady,
they would have left me a note.
It makes me think that lady, I forget her name, but
Vasilisa.
Yeah, she was super screwed, which makes me think maybe they could just bring her here and give her some magic water.
Yep.
Nobody's dead. Don't bury the living.
You never know.
As Gamma says, or whoever.
Living in deathly water, or whatever it is. Heavy
water. Yeah.
Yeah, because I kept thinking like they need water. They're thirsty, right? They haven't had water, so he's setting up this thirst thing, and they're going to take them to a place that has living water.
Water is life. There's a whole there's a whole religious undertone to this too, in certain ways. There's like God the Father as like the vengeful, spiteful, rule-making father, and then there's like him as like the atom that's naming all the things. They need water to be, he's baptized through his washing all of his stuff off. And the people that are dead are reborn as Lazarus through like this special holy water that there is poured on them. There's like a weird, like, it does map onto that as well, along
Even,
with like
New Testament, John 1, in the beginning was the word. It's about the speaking of the word. And so the poetry, the speaking of it into your mind,
the sheer omniscience of Solovey is insane. The sheer omniscience of Solovey knowing all these things and being able to enter people's worlds is like a omniscient God-like figure in a very
it makes him omnipresent because they're always like, you don't want to be in his grasp. You don't want to be like he's everywhere in this world.
Don't touch his shit. You're gonna. I would think 7 times before I say his name or whatever line is. Like what?
No, if you want to keep riffing on this even further, the whole thing with the blood.
Yep. Yeah.
Right? Washed in blood and like I'm feeling you, Voladine. Let's do this.
Yeah. Right on.
Okay. Let's get deep. Let's do it. All right.
So did you guys have a favorite line aside from the one I stole from you, Rachel? You can read that one again because it's so good.
Yeah, I think I will read it again.
Good for you. Do it.
I'm doing it, but now I don't know where it is. It was the one where she's like, it is 105. Thank you. I was getting there.
Yeah, 105.
Yeah. Okay. It's let me set it up. All right. These flies are like going along, and every once in a while you hear and he's just like, Kronauer's like, what is that? And she says, it's the flies. The Grandma Ogdell says the spiders didn't survive, but the flies did. All the so-called experts were wrong about that. Kronauer nods. I respected those scholars back in my childhood, but after living so long, I learned that they often just spouted bullshit. Yeah. I love you, Grandma.
What do you got, Ryan?
Okay, page 85, right in the middle. So I want you to imagine this not being, take yourself completely out of the whole post-apocalyptic, everything has gone to shit, and think of it as just bad Harlequin romance. It starts with she seemed to be swaying. Under her dress, her breast shifted. She smiled wryly. If Kronauer hadn't been so weak, he would have blushed. The blood tried to fill his cheeks. I'd really like to take a shower or wash myself somewhere, he said. We'll show you to get to the shower room, Miriam Ulrich said. Good, Kronauer said, because I really don't smell good. It's like, you can take that out of context and have no idea. Like, there's nothing sexy or wonderful about any of that. But
it's also probably a channel somewhere. One thing I forgot to mention is that the Maria Qual, or that is, keep saying her name. I think that's right. Mm-hmm. But it's funny because the descriptions of her books that are in here, wherever it is so similar in theory and in nature to the Virginie Despentes book that I had to teach to my class, that I read the two like one after the other, and I was like, that would be funny if he was referring to her or thinking of her when he was writing this. So the description is like, he had read several of Maria Qual's works denigrating masculine impulses and depicting them in the most odious, most revolting way possible, which is totally generic description, but it's like so exactly like Pretty Things, which I went through. I was like, man, yeah, I'm surrounded by this. I'm going to use a lame first favorite one for this one. On 123, I was going to read the long one about parallel worlds, but I think on 123, there aren't any spiders left, Hanko Voglian said. That's not something I'm very sad about, Kronauer said as he kept following the pipe.
Yeah, I like that one too.
Solid. Okay, so next week, Brett McNeil is supposed to join us, and hopefully he'll still be able to. And we are going to go over chapters 9 through 13, which goes up through page 193. So it's like a 60-page section for next week. Other than that, I have nothing else to add. Anyone else?
No, it was awesome getting to chat with you folks. I just have one question. What was the? I'm into type settings right now. Do you remember what the typeface was for his poetry?
I was immediately going to say Baskerville, and I don't know why I was going to say that.
I'm just curious what the aesthetic choices were.
I think it was the same as I want to say it was the same as what it was in the original, but let me Okay, so it's in Bembo is the main one, and then I can find out for you.
Yeah, I'm just curious about
We
it.
have the files, so
Yeah, let me know why you chose what you chose. I'm just curious about it because I got to start thinking about this kind of crap. So interesting.
yeah, your book should have a galley soon
Yeah, not too long.
and a cover.
Ooh, congrats.
I'll send you one. It's
Right
not
on.
translated, unfortunately, but yeah.
That's okay.
It's sort of speculative. It's about men.
There's a man in it.
There's a you know, I'll read stuff once in a while. That's not
All right, cool,
translated.
cool.
Yeah, it's all good.
Oh man, thanks for
But I
joining us.
guarantee all the men suck in it, so it's good.
They do. They do.
Well, thank you for inviting me. I
Of
love
course.
talking about this book. It's so strange and freaky, and I
Yeah.
love it.
No,
Yeah.
your insights are super helpful. I appreciate it very much having somebody that reads this kind of stuff.
Yeah.
Like, a lot because I'm lost reading this, but I enjoy being lost. So that's cool.
I think it's super fun. I think this is a really great book for the season because it does
Yeah.
keep building on itself, and like you can keep coming up with different theories to frame it, and like moving through it in this way is it's kind of perfect. Like it
slightly
works
prescient.
well. Slightly what?
Slightly prescient, unfortunately.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know what you mean. But anyways, yeah. So anyone listening still, like, send us your drawings of the made up plants, and we want to make a broadside, and next week we'll be back with more Volodine talk.
Woohoo!
Yay.